Hello and welcome to the Open Resourcery. Today we are going to be talking about energy work, and I have brought along with me one of my favorite people, Drew from Familiar Company. If you'd like to introduce yourself, Drew.
Hey, today I'm excited for this. It's a pretty influential subject in my life. Uh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then, of course, I've got Twisted here as well, as he is, partner in crime over here on the Open Resourcery. So go ahead and do your spiel.
What's good, y'all? Popping in once again, as I'm sure you're all familiar with my voice. And yeah, let's get it rolling.
All right. So, energy work. We hear this term a lot. It has become really kind of fixated with the new age. It's like, oh, I'm sending energy and doing all this. What does that actually mean? I do kind of want to go around the room. So what does sending energy or doing energy work mean to you? And since you are our guest, I'm going to have you go first, Drew.
So that's the thing, though. Like you said in the beginning, is there's a lot of ideas about what energy work is, and it really influences how people see the way I relate to energy work, because I see it very differently than probably the average stereotype, because it translates to me as almost a psychic perception. It's a sense, the sixth sense, where we sense the things that are built up around us, whether it be water, fire, air, interactions, emotions, and it's filtered through this stereotype of, well, that must mean clairvoyance, that must mean this or that, and it's not so simple when you're thinking about the way you relate to the very elements that you interact with too on a day-to-day basis. Energy work is about taking in the resonance of the things around us, whether it be fire, water, air, spirit, so on, and perceiving this kind of energy, or you could say chi, is what is the defining quality in energy work in itself, is whether you can sense it or see it in some fashion, and work with it. I don't like saying manipulate necessarily, but working with any kind of certain energy, whether it be breathing it in or it be rotating it to the faculties of chakra points, or a whole list of methods really come up when you start talking about energy work in particular. But when it becomes to understanding energy or psychic perception, it becomes a very hard conversation to have because of the stigma that follows with it.
Agreed. Very much agreed. I would also say for myself, it's more like energy work is finding a muscle that you didn't know that you had. And once you flex it, you're just like, oh, that is weak. And then you have to kind of practice and strengthen it and make it better over time. And certainly it is not technically a new age thing. Like you said, chi. Chi is something that has been around God knows how long. I'm trying to think of other words for it in other cultures, but many other cultures have different names for it. It's just all kind of been put underneath the umbrella of energy work, to be sure. Yep. Twisted, what are your thoughts? What is energy for you?
Well, I think when it comes to the whole energy work thing, Drew went ahead and he put it rather eloquently. For me, energy is, the totality of all of existence and pervading throughout that consciousness in of itself to varying different degrees, so on and so forth, right? So I guess when it comes to energy work, what comes to mind for me is the process of transmutation from an alchemical standpoint, right? So you're going ahead and you're taking one sort of energy, one sort of vibration, whatever you want to quantify it as, whether it's in a visual or a sonic or whatever sort of manifestation or manner in which we interpret it with our five senses, right? And you go ahead and you direct it, direct the flow of it, or you go ahead and you have a particular intention and then you change it into a means of energy that is going to suit that. So you program it in a sense, right? And then you direct it towards whatever the direction is, say whether it's another person, whether it's yourself, whether it's in creating a thought form to then go ahead and do said intention, whatever the case may be. Yeah, just plain and simple. It's just going ahead and interfacing with existence in reality. And while we're going ahead and talking about it in some sort of woo-woo sort of manner, it's something we all do. In our day-to-day lives, like every single moment that we breathe, we're doing this. The difference just comes to how conscious and aware that's ongoing, and you know that for many people those are varying different degrees. So for myself, I attribute myself as not being all too aware of these sorts of things, as opposed to say you two, if you want to go on the power level scale or the strengths and weaknesses scale. But at the same time, I am very conscious that, hey, look, my actions in some way, shape, or form every day are in fact energy work,
Mm-hmm.
and pretty much I think that does apply to everyone else. It just how ready and willing are you to go ahead and do that, or maybe just based on, say, your own spiritual evolution, what stage are you at to where you are prepared to undertake that sort of thing while in human form?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That was
So,
beautifully said.
yes, very much so. So, energy, of course, is all around us. These forces that we can't quantify, in other words, so we just call them a blanket statement of energy. They probably have different types out there. And I mean, we know positive, negative, things like that. But in terms of starting to work with energy, we want to go through kind of the basics of perceiving and the basics of working with. So I know for myself, my perception of energy, like when I was going through my journey and starting out, learning was okay to perceive energy. One of the first exercises that I did was rubbing my hands together and making that friction. And then with that friction, seeing, okay, how far apart can I perceive, like if you bring your hands apart after rubbing them together, how far apart can you perceive kind of like that field? And so it's opening something up. It's reawakening something that technically we always had. Everyone technically is a little bit psychic. It's just a matter of flexing the muscle. And, perception and everything like that. What was one of your first experiences?
Well, if I could go ahead and add on to that particular sort of means of doing so, I remember I've only done this once, but I remember, I'm sure you guys know my boy Kenny, right?
Yes.
In the server, he was in here a while ago, hasn't popped in a bit, but he's one of those sort of vagabond types that, he'll pop in and out.
That man is an airbender.
You're not wrong.
Oh, yeah.
You are not wrong.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's definitely one of those sorts that, a lot of people can't necessarily go ahead and, interpret what the heck he's saying at times. But, for those who, with the ears to hear, you could say, you can go ahead and keep track of what he's saying, if you just pay a little bit more closer attention. But in any case, I remember this was like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, something to that extent. But there was one time he and I were in a private one-on-one call, and in this, he was going ahead and doing some pretty crazy things. Like he was very so slightly making objects move and or levitate and all that sort of thing. And I was watching on his camera. I was like, oh, okay, all right. He's doing something interesting there. But um, I know that later on in the conversation, we went ahead and he was like, "Hey, do you want to go ahead and try out, something of detecting energy?" And me just being open and receptive to the experience, I'm like, "Sure, I'll go ahead and do it." And pretty much the same sort of thing that you were talking about, Divinium, where you go ahead and you rub your hands together and then you like focus on it to try to perceive a field. But I guess the one thing I want to add on is like if you just allow yourself to zone out, like visually, then that will allow you to go ahead and see a particular sort of color. And with that color, initially focusing on it, a lot of times, you know, it you start off seeing gray, at least in my experience, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
like some sort of gray, nothing all too distinct. But then you'll start to see some sort of color in it. And with that, that is kind of like your color, your sort of like, vibe or your sort of aura color. And, for me, that apparently seems to be yellow green, as, you have confirmed yourself.
Yup.
And, in that sort of experience, that was, sort of the hey, look, that's your 101. That's how you go ahead and do that for me. So shout out to my boy Kenny. Definitely went ahead and I appreciate that right there. And then also, either in that call or in another one, that went ahead and he went ahead and quote unquote initiated me into the whole sort of COSA race sort of thing, which has been quite useful for us here in the server for a multitude of things.
Mm-hmm.
And later on, I think I can go ahead and delve a little bit more deeper into that. But how about for you, Drew? Like for your first sort of energy work thing, what exactly is it that you did, or that you think you can add on to what Debbie and I have stated thus far?
I think for me, my pyromania was a key influence in this whole thing. I've always been very, very fascinated with fire. Um,
I mean, same.
as silly as it is, I want to bring up Sirius Black and one of the movies of Harry Potter where he appears in the fire and he's speaking to Harry, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had this experience way before that movie ever came out. I was at a campfire, I was in Boy Scouts, and I was just chilling, and there I was looking in the fire, and then the spirit of the forest like started to speak to me, and it was it was very uncomfortable, and it was a very harsh conversation. Um, I thought I was going crazy. Um,
Everyone
but
does it first.
I realized I really did have a relationship with the land, the earth, um, the back we walk on. Uh, when I realized that, I started to cater my steps and my speaking and my mannerisms, because it felt like not only am I walking on the back of it, but I'm carrying it through this one experience of talking to a pit of fire. And I was there with three other friends and Boy Scouts. We're just on a camping trip, and I'm sitting here, and this fire is speaking to me, like, and I thought I was crazy. My therapists were like, "Yep, you're distributing sign, you're displaying signs of schizophrenia and so on." And so they put me on antipsychotics and yada yada yada. But I was, and like I realized much later through other relationships of like working with energy and elements and particularly fire. Like candle work has always been something I've had an affinity for. Before I even knew what Wicca was or anything of that nature, like any kind
Absolutely.
of energy work. I was introduced to it by the fire because the fire spoke to me, and ever since then I kind of been dabbled in elements, whether it be looking into the reflection of stars in a vast endless sea before dawn, but or even looking into a campfire, or
A simple
maybe
candle.
hearing the wind blow through trees, or closing your eyes and feeling the electricity. I don't know. Yeah,
Well, yeah,
that's the energy work for me.
absolutely. So, I mean, opening yourself up to energy work is one thing and starting to recognize it. And a lot of these practices honestly can help you perceive it to start with. But where do you go from there? Um, I know for myself, the starting point is certainly, detection, actually being able to feel it, actually being able to perceive it, rubbing your hands together and being able to recognize that there is something there that's between your hands, not just, air. Um, and I know candle meditation for myself actually helped a lot with kind of growing that perception. And because fire is so entrancing, it really is. That is one of the easiest ways to start growing your perception of energy. Because fire is very, very fickle and it will move for you whenever you push energy towards it. And I know pushing energy sounds weird, right? That sounds like, ooh, we've gone into witchy woo woo territory of get her a straight jacket. But you can definitely push energy and you feel it. A lot of the meditations that you'll take, a lot of these steps next are all about visualization. And if you have difficulty with visualization, put it to a feeling instead. I know there are several people who have difficulty putting images in their head. From there, I would say go with a feeling instead of trying to create a picture. But that was my experience in growing that and doing candle meditations. What have you guys done continuously to try and advance your perception? Twisted?
For me, honestly, that would be what I alluded to before, the whole coaster race sort of thing in the whole visualization aspect. Now, for me, it's less of a sort of receptive sort of thing of like picking up on different things around me, and also it's more of like an active sort of, trying to interpret it in some way, shape, or form, right? Imposing my own will in interacting with things. So you two guys obviously know what I mean by that in terms of like the like using it for particular purposes. But I guess the best way to explain it is like um using that sort of system, making correlations with certain, archangels, in particular for the coastal ray system, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
particular usages of these colors. And I think in of itself, the whole aspect of the correlation of colors and their aspects, their usages to different means of energy work, or different, or different, like, hey, look, this is a sort of energy, that is being brought towards me, as opposed to just the trying to, actively seek out or impose your will upon something. Yeah, so I don't think we touched much upon it before I mentioned it, but yes, colors in of themselves, making those associations, I think that is definitely something for someone who's starting out to go ahead and do, and that would be of great benefit.
Absolutely. Drew, is there any other practices that you continue to do that help you grow in terms of perception of energy and doing energy work?
I think the Four Folds has been a fundamental for me. It's a matter of like awareness around your breathing and control, and not just that, but while you're going through like a fourfold pattern, which would be breathing in for 4 seconds, holding for 4 seconds, exhaling for 4 seconds, and then repeat. Every rotation, there's a stop sign, release, and go. And you keep it within 4 seconds. And while you're doing that, you're also visualizing, and the matter, I guess the way you could put it I'd have to walk through it briefly.
Go
So
for it.
you can do this with any element, right? You can do this with sun, moon, you can do it with the seasons, fall, winter, spring, summer, so on. But for the sake of it, I'm sitting here under a moon, so I might as well use lunar energy. So while I walk through this, I'll be trying to identify with the lunar energy. So as you count to the 4 on your inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold, exhale at 4. On this inhale, you would imagine this moon growing brighter above you, and then hold. Imagine a string from the moon connect to you. Exhale. The string is still there. You see the moon grow brightly. Hold. Inhale. Deep to count of 4. Imagine the moon grow brightly. A strong connection's been made. And now that you are going through the 4 folds, you hold this rotation. Breathe in 4, exhale. You hold 4, exhale 4. And you hold this rotation with the whatever element is present, whether it be the season, the moon, or the sun. But you want to focus on the season, your environment, and imagine all these. Well, it's not imagine it. You're aware of it. You're doing it in the moment. You're connecting yourself to the current circumstances and the elements. It's like a deep awareness. As you focus on your breath and you focus on what element is in your presence. You're inhaling it, you're working with it, you're breathing with it, and you'll slowly start to sense it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know another meditation that I've used that's very similar to that, but instead of fourfold breath, I just breathe until my stomach is literally about to pop like a balloon. And then on the exhale, typically I'm one of those that I will lay down when I'm meditating because I'm lazy, I guess, and I like to relax every muscle in my body. And then I will imagine a golden root starting to dig deep into the earth on the exhale. And then you exhale until there's nothing left. You're literally emptying the tank. And that one I think has helped me the most in terms of that. Like those fire meditations, those candle meditations, that was like the next step. But getting deeper into being able to find that quiet in one's mind and being able to focus on imagery in one's mind. I would say imagination, but it's not really imagination. You are creating the things that are running through your head and you are experiencing them. All right. Well, that has been, perception of energy work and the energy work that is done. Are there any final thoughts from the two of you? Twisted, would you like to go first?
I think we covered quite a bit in regards to that. I guess if anything, maybe, what we could do at some point down the line is maybe like go ahead and provide a little bit more of like a step by step how to process um for like, a basic practice,
Absolutely.
that's with an additional video down in the future. Aside from that, I think we got the sort of philosophy aspect of it out, and out there for people to consume, and yeah, just stay tuned for more about that and other things.
Absolutely. Drew, do you have any final thoughts on the beginnings of energy work?
Yeah, I honestly think this was a great introduction because it breaks down the fundamentals of what psychic perception really means in these kind of circles. It's not what movie magic depicts it as. It's genuinely about how much awareness you have about everything around you, and I think we really highlighted that, and it's a privilege to be had. And thank you for having me here.
Thank you for coming on. We appreciate that very much. I hope you stick around with us because we're going to do more Magic 101. This is Devi. I got Twisted and I've got Drew.
Yep.
And thank you so much for joining in, and we hope to see you next time. Goodbye.